We have some news out of the so-called liberal media. So MSNBC is apparently hiring George Will. For those of you who know George Will, you know why I'm laughing. NBC has snagged another conservative voice, hiring Washington Post columnist and former Fox News commentator George Will as a contributor for MSNBC and NBC News, Politico reported Monday. Will has been a regular guest on MSNBC shows since January after his Fox News contract wasn't renewed. He officially joins the network, strongly associated with outspoken progressive, so-called progressive personalities like Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes, as it faces scrutiny for recently veering in a more conservative direction. Former George W. Bush spokeswoman Nicole Wallace is set to host a show on MSNBC, and the network is in talks with conservative radio host Hugh Hewitt about creating a weekend show, New York Magazine has reported. So they also hired, you guys probably already know this, but they also hired Megyn Kelly and Greta Van Susteren. Oh, it's so sad. So look, here's the deal. MSNBC was the Democratic Apologist Network. A lot of people get these things confused, like a Democratic network versus a liberal or progressive network. Those are not the same thing. In fact, they're not even remotely close. So if it was a liberal network or a progressive network, they would get good ratings because they go out there and they would argue for liberal and progressive values and liberal and progressive policies. And that would mean that even when the Democratic Party buckled and moved away from those priorities, which they would all the time, and they do all the time, they would hold them accountable. But that's not what MSNBC does. Nobody thinks that's what MSNBC does. What they do is Democratic Party apologetics. So whatever position the Democrats take, that's the position that MSNBC is going to defend. Now, of course, the opposite of that is Fox News. Fox News is the propaganda arm of the Republican Party. In fact, there's a story recently about how Donald Trump speaks to Rupert Murdoch almost on a daily basis. So they're literally the propaganda arm for the Republican Party and the president. And nobody's surprised by that. So in other words, they are not a principled conservative network or libertarian network, because if they were, then they would call out the Republicans when they deviate from, let's say they had a real principled belief in small government. Well, then when they see how the Republican tax cuts for the rich balloon the deficit, they go, no, it's not okay. We're against deficits. We're conservative. But no, they don't do that. They defend the Republican Party. So MSNBC, Democratic Network, Fox News, Republican Network. Now, CNN, a lot of people mistakenly believe, CNN's they're the good ones then, right? No, not even close. Because they do propaganda for both the Republicans and the Democrats. They are the false neutrality network. So they present everything like it's 50-50, and they're a mouthpiece for the establishment. And they also have a sensationalism bias as well, which means just to get eyeballs, they'll, cover stories about Kim Kardashian and whatnot. So they all suck. All in mainstream media suck. Now they just got worse. Because the Democratic network, now they're trying to be more like CNN. So CNN recently, they've hired Rick Santorum, for example, Corey Lewandowski. Corey Lewandowski was Trump's campaign advisor for a brief amount of time. Rick Santorum's Rick Santorum. We need to discuss him. Crazy far-right Christian fundamentalist lunatic. Says things that are not true virtually every time he opens his mouth. But so they hired them. Well, MSNBC's like, yeah, let's try to do that. And they even go on to say in this article, they're trying a more centrist approach. No. They're trying a more neutral approach. They're going to do false equivalence, fake neutrality. That's what this is. So now they're going to do, the Democrats say X, the Republicans say Y. Here, you got both perspectives. Let's move on. And remember, don't mistake neutrality for objectivity. Objectivity is, I'm going to tell the truth no matter what, and no matter what sides I'm maligning and what political parties and individuals I'm putting down, I'm going to tell the truth no matter what. Objectivity doesn't factor into the equation for Fox News, CNN, or MSNBC. It never crosses their mind. So now on MSNBC, you should expect to see a lot more of a CNN-like atmosphere. I mean, that's exactly what this is. And just to give you, a little bio here on George Will, he's a climate science denier. By the way, New York Times did this recently too. They hired Brett Stevens. They're like, we need more conservative voices. Hire Brett Stevens. We need more diverse opinions here. Like, first article he wrote was climate science denying. Okay, that's not just a different opinion. That's a guy who's wrong. Wrong. You can't portray something as fact when it is not fact and then say, what? It's just diversity of opinion. No, you're wrong. Should you hire a column for somebody to write 2 + 2 = 22 and it doesn't equal 4? So, but that's what's happening now. The New York Times did that. Now they're hiring George Will at MSNBC. George Will, climate science denier. George Will said, I'm not kidding, Mitt Romney was going to win in a landslide victory against Barack Obama. Why is there zero accountability for people on the right? That's my question. There's no accountability. You know who else said Mitt Romney would win in a landslide? Glenn Beck. You know who else said it? Larry Kudlow on CNBC. These are people who have been demonstrably wrong about virtually everything. George Will's another one of these guys who says, Reaganomics or trickle-down economics, as it's called, voodoo economics. Oh, that works. Deregulation and tax cuts for the rich led to the Great Depression, and it led to the Great Recession. We have all the evidence in the world that you're wrong, but they hire these guys and they let them spew their propaganda, even though they're incorrect. So now you got George Will on MSNBC. And think about it, man. Look at these names. They also naively think they're going to get better ratings by going in this direction. That's fucking hilarious. Who on earth is going to say, guys, I would love to go out with you and get a bite to eat, but I got to go watch Hugh Hewitt. Hugh Hewitt's on TV tonight, and man, is he great. Nobody watches Hugh Hewitt. Nobody gives a fuck about Hugh Hewitt. Who cares about Nicole Wallace? These are all people who, idiot CEOs, and brass at MSNBC in the boardroom, they think, yeah, we got to be more fair, so we got to have more conservatives here. Let's go with George Will and Nicole Wallace, and let's go with Hugh Hewitt, maybe Greta Van Susteren. Who the fuck gets excited over Greta Van Susteren? But they really believe they're that stupid, they're that out of touch. They have no clue what the audience wants, and they have no clue how to be objective and get people who care about facts. And be entertaining, by the way, while we're at it. So they're so naive and so stupid and so out of touch that they really think like, no, soon as we bring in Hugh Hewitt, soon as we bring in Nicole Wallace, soon as we bring in George Will, who has the personality of a fucking... Trying to think of something funny right now. Give me a second. My mind's got to catch up. He has the personality of roadkill. I tried. They're really sold that this is the way to go. They're really convinced this is the way that we're going to get eyeballs. By getting boring, idiot conservatives that nobody cares about. And by the way, I know a lot of people say, well, Kyle, you're just, you're just not conservative, so that's why you're... It's not just about me and my personal preferences. It's about, no, these guys are also, on top of being wrong about virtually everything, these guys are incredibly unentertaining. Are there libertarian voices out there that sometimes say things that are totally true and they're actually entertaining and interesting? Sure. They wouldn't consider them. This is all old media jacking itself off. Let's shuffle one group of people who got low ratings and were wrong about everything from one network to another network. They're never gonna fucking learn, ever. Which is why, here at Secular Talk, we have an advertising budget of $0.00. And guess what? We beat CNN in the middle of the day in the key demographic oftentimes. Think about that. They have billions of dollars behind them. Billions of dollars. All the resources in the world, hot, overpaid people, and we beat them in the key demographic in the middle of the day, oftentimes. What does that say? That says that they can't make it in an actual free marketplace. So, by the way, the new move is they cheat. I mean, we spoke about it. You guys all know there was the great YouTube demonetization, the YouTube apocalypse, we went from killing it to making virtually nothing, over a 99% cut. YouTube swears up and down there's not a blacklist. There is a blacklist. I know because I was on it for over a week. Thankfully, we're off the blacklist. By the way, I got some new information, and it turns out I might be off the blacklist because of you guys. Yet again, you bailed me out because you're fucking awesome. Because YouTube apparently, I can't give too many details here, but YouTube apparently said to somebody who I know, they were like, yeah, we saw his video, me calling out the demonetization. And they were like, yeah, it's made its way around. So you guys made enough noise where it became a thing. But anyway, we're off the blacklist, but myself and other shows that are very similar to mine, independent, new media, progressive media, still have had a giant funding cut. When you see ads on my videos, I don't know which brands are and aren't the top of the top, but apparently we get all like second-rate ads, which means they pay dog shit, which means that still to this day we have like a 50% cut in our revenue, which is why you guys are the main source of funding for the show now. And I'm actually proud about that, because think about it, man. Grassroots-funded show versus put somebody like Wolf Blitzer on YouTube in a real free marketplace. See how well he does. Have Wolf Blitzer start a Patreon to get, for his YouTube audience. See how that would go. My guess is he'd get about $17.23 a month. That's my guess. But you guys bailed out the show, and you did it in a way... I mean, this is the model of the future, man. All we're asking, $2 a month if you want to go nuts, $5 or $7 a month. But basically, for the price of a cup of coffee for me every month, you prop up the show completely. It's like $0.01 per video. And you guys understood, yeah, look, it's worth that to me. And you understand that they just pulled the rug out from underneath us. So, but this is what our competition is doing. And if it was an actual fair fight where they couldn't cheat, we would win easy. But the trick was, all the ad money went to old media. Then it started coming to new media. And remember, there's a firewall between me and the advertiser, so I never talk to the advertiser, so I can't sell out. So there's a giant buffer there, which makes YouTube a brilliant model. But what happened is, as soon as we started eclipsing them, they leapfrogged us and stole the revenue. How? YouTube rolled out YouTube TV. And YouTube TV is the same old media companies getting the revenue in a new way. So they started to lose to us, and then they weren't going to let that happen. Pull some strings, run some fucking hack attacks on YouTube and independent media in the Wall Street Journal and the Times of London, cause an advertiser panic, and then boom, they take all that revenue back when they roll out YouTube TV. No, I'm sure it was just a coincidence that fucking YouTube TV rolled out at the same time they demonetized the news and politics division for independent YouTube creators. I'm sure it's all a coincidence. So, man, how pathetic are they? Can you imagine being that silly and believing, seriously guys, once we get George Will and once we get Hugh Hewitt, who has negative 32 fans, let me tell you something. Their shows, Nicole Wallace, they're going to take our network to a whole new level. So we'll have Rachel Maddow screaming about Russia for an hour straight. By the way, the majority of Rachel Maddow's coverage is Russia. 53% of her coverage, it outweighs all other issues combined. That's literal. So we'll have Rachel Maddow scream about Russia, Chris Hayes having an identity crisis. Am I progressive? Am I a sellout corporatist? Am I progressive? Am I a sellout corporatist? And we'll have a bunch of conservative idiots. So you go ahead. I'll let you guys make the call. Where's your source of media going to be?